From the center of the galaxy, this is ForceCenter, a show about Star Wars pop culture and the ultimate adventure, life itself. I'm Ken Napzok.
And I'm Jennifer Landa.
And Joseph Scrimshaw is still out, a much-deserved working vacation. He'll be back soon enough. We've got some Star Wars questions today. And before we get to that, we're just going to get right to the business. We want to remind you that today's show is brought to you by Audible. And you can get a free audiobook download and a 30-day free trial at audibletrial.com/ForceCenter. Over 180,000 titles to choose from for your iPhone, Android, Kindle, or MP3 player. We're still recommending Rebel Rising by Beth Revis. We like to recommend some books for a little bit, then we'll change it up. But we love that book so much around here. And you can support the show and get a free audiobook on us by going to audibletrial.com/ForceCenter. Sometimes I forget it after all these years. But again, that's audibletrial.com/ForceCenter for your free audio book. And that's our Audible. Jen, we're still doing our Patreon ask here.
That's right. Patreon is what keeps ForceCenter running. We are so grateful to all of you who are our patrons, and we are asking for reaching a goal of 415. Right now we're about hovering 400, 402, 3.
Yeah.
We're not far off. We're almost there. And once we reach 415 paid patrons, we will do a patron-only live stream. What's going to happen? I don't know. Lots of things have been thrown out. Yeah. Tina Turner. Can't get the song out of my head.
We're gonna private dance for all of us here. Not really, but it'll be fun. We'll be hanging out exclusive with Patreon supporters. Jen ain't lying. In this ever-changing digital media landscape, revenue streams can change, can disappear. Patreon remains a constant, and we really appreciate all of you just by listening, just by liking this video. If you're watching on YouTube, just by telling your friends about us, that's a big support as well. But we do appreciate those who choose to support and can support on Patreon. And from there, they get into our Discord, which is, Jen, how we're fueling our questions today. Normally, Star Wars questions these days come from our Patreon page, patreon.com/ForceCenter. Joseph pulls his questions there. I went to the prompt where several questions were there that we had answered or we were going to answer and are going to answer. And I just was like, you know what? They're wonderful, deep, essay-like questions, but I wanted something direct, fun, punchy. So I went to Discord. I put the call out on a Sunday afternoon Discord, and Jen, they answered.
Yes, they did. There's always a lively, robust conversation on our Discord. It's so fun.
And our first question of the day comes from Eli, known as OchiFan327 on Discord. And I always say, if you have a great username, also include your real name. So if I ever meet you at a live event or a comedy show and you're like, hey, I'm Ochifan, I can go, oh, also you're Eli. That's important. Eli asks, all right, there's some specific parameters to this question, Jen. Yeah. And I keep forgetting it. Which non-showrunner, live-action Star Wars show director, examples include Bryce Dallas Howard, Kogonada, Peter Ramsey, would you most want to see return for more in future Star Wars shows / films? And then bonus, what kind of stories would you like to see them direct? So this is looking at a large slate of Star Wars directors who have directed Disney Plus shows. Of course, we do have some film directors to choose from, but this is specific about the show directors. And I'll throw this before I let you answer, Jen. We do agree. Jennifer Corbett and the Brad Rao and the Bad Batch team, though that's animated, I would let them tell any Star Wars story in any medium that they wanted or were able to. So it's not really directly related to the question from Eli, but I'm going to put Jennifer Corbett and her team right there on a shelf of praise.
100%. Oof, that would be great.
I hope they get a chance with their animated show. Maybe we'll get that announcement once ForceCenter is done recording today. Where do you go with this answer, Jen?
Oh, this is a tough one. I have two people in mind. My second one is a cheat, so I'll go with the first one, which we haven't even seen what they've done yet.
I like
the Daniels.
Cheats.
The Daniels, right? They're directing an episode or maybe a couple episodes of Skeleton Crew. The Daniels are Daniel Kwan and Daniel Scheinert, who directed Everything Everywhere All at Once. I would love for them to do a Star Wars movie. And I want for them to just go wild, which I know with Star Wars, it tends to be a collaboration. There's a lot of parameters. I don't know what era they would be in, but I just think that if they had full say everything that they could do. I'd love to see their take.
Yeah. No, that's a great answer. Because we haven't seen them yet in Star Wars.
Right.
You just got a sense that they're going to nail it, which is maybe just being hopeful. But everything everywhere all at once, like it's a superhero film in a different way, right? It's got so many wonderful things going on in it. So this also could mean Jamie Lee Curtis in Star Wars. Maybe that's it. Yeah, I'm just like, where do you? Yeah, I'm just.
Where do you put them?
Where do you put them? What kind of story? Yeah, and you're right. What era? Where do you go?
I don't know.
I don't
know. I just know it's going to be wild, but it's also going to be incredibly emotional and heartfelt. I mean, I was crying during Everything Everywhere All at Once, and the moments where I was like just shocked and like, oh my gosh, I can't believe that they're doing this, right? So that would be fun to see.
Yeah, it's a great answer. And that's one of these things. This question is based around something that I think we've said around here for years, but one of the greatest things of the TV era in Star Wars, we'll say the Disney Plus era, has been the ability to get a lot of these names into Star Wars for many reasons. It's hard, first of all, there's just not as many films made. And even in this era, in the post-2012 Disney sale era, as many Star Wars films as we've been blessed with, you're not going to get a ton of them, and you're only going to get a certain amount of names and at times a certain amount of people directing them. The biggest victory of Disney Plus to me of the era has been so many different creators getting to touch Star Wars. So this is a great question. So many choices, I almost get a little overwhelmed. So, do you have any backups, or I'll toss one out? We can, if you have backups, we can go to that. But
okay.
Yeah, I'm gonna go by. Eli touched on it. It's Bryce Dallas Howard for me, who's also got an episode coming up, or at least one episode in Skeleton Crew. I think what she's done with Book of Boba Fett, our episodes in Mandalorian, have been wonderful. We've praised them here. And in terms of stories, I'd love to see a movie. I'd love her to direct a Star Wars movie, but even get control of a series, run a series, a live-action series. I just like having her around Star Wars. And I've talked about it before here, particularly the Book of Boba Fett episode, which is the Din Djarin episode that's much debated, but it's such a beautiful episode. Tale of Two Mothers. You get the N1 starfighter that she just directed the hell out of a spaceship, returning to Star Wars Galaxy. She's always found time for these warm moments. A lot of them are maternal moments, and I've been careful here, and Jen, I think you understand where I'm coming from. Of like, just because of your mother, that's not the only thing you are and could do.
Right.
So I always want to be clear that I don't need Bryce Dallas Howard to do the mom Star Wars movie. But
although I wouldn't mind it. I wouldn't mind it.
The mother's taking a little bigger place on the depth chart in Star Wars is not a bad thing, as we've discussed that before. But she's found these wonderful moments that go just beyond maternal, but they seem to be based around. I'm thinking about the Rhodians on watching Din fly in that episode, Book of Boba Fett. She just has in the Sorgan episode, which initially I remember I didn't love right away, but also I was trying to figure out what they were doing with Mando season 1. But now it's one of my favorite episodes to watch, turning the AT-ST into a dinosaur essentially, and then having these really personal moments with Grogu and the kids, and Din, can he take his helmet off and maybe find love and find love? And it's some of the warmest stuff in Star Wars, and for her to bring that to a series, that's what I'd be really hopeful. There's a lot of great names. Peter Ramsey's episode of Ahsoka I love too, but I look at her and I really want her to keep going in Star Wars.
Oh, well, that's a cosign. I mean, all right. That's a tough one to follow. Because you're so right. She nails it. She nails it every time. And it just seems like there's a real ease about her. I don't know. I love her as an actor as well, but boy, she's a fantastic director.
She does a great job as Yaddle too, so we can have a Yaddle film. She voices Yaddle. Throw it. I hope she makes an actual appearance in live action Star Wars too.
Yeah.
As an actor.
Yeah. Let's see her direct herself. Why not? You know what I'm going to throw out there, and I'm cheating because he was a showrunner, but Robert Rodriguez.
Okay.
I loved Book of Boba Fett, but here's the thing. I want to see his unfiltered take on Star Wars, and I want it to be about the mods. That scene where they walk into the mod parlor And you see these young people with their body, their modifications. That felt so new to me. It was like, it felt a little edgy, and it made me instantly want to know more about all these people. What is that culture like? What are the politics like within that culture? How do you find yourself in that situation where you want to become basically a cyborg?
Yeah.
Like, what leads you to make these choices, right? I think that that's so fascinating, and I think colorful speeders aside, I think that he could make it really. I want to see him mix his action with like gore, which this is why it's never going to happen. It's never going to happen, right?
Yeah.
Like kind of like that indie style that he's very known for. I don't want it to look big budget in any way. I want it just to look raw. What is it? Death proof, like that style.
You want it even. It sounds like you want to go back to even just El Mariachi style. Not even his later work, but the one that he spent $50 on and launched a career, which I was in film school at the time, and shortly after that came out, and we had to study that one. That was an entire semester of study what Rodriguez did with El Mariachi. I look at it. We've taken the colorful speeders head on here at ForceCenter, especially Joseph and I. Give me the reasons why they'd paint them. I think they're
right.
I think they're compelling reasons for what they stand for. As we always say here, is it the best chase sequence in all of Star Wars? No. Could I have lived without colorful speeders? Sure. But now I've almost become so defensive of them. They are my favorite things in a way. I think I'd buy, that's the only Star Wars collectibles I'd buy now, are the colorful speeders, just because the themes behind it. The youth of Tatooine going, yeah, this drab, yellow, gravelly sandstorm of a place, we're going to bring some color to it. We're going to bring something different to it. There you go.
You made me just think of it, make it like American Graffiti, but Star Wars the mod, right? The mods. That's what I want.
There you go.
Yeah.
There you go. Yeah. Robert Rodriguez does American Space Graffiti. Well, a couple of shows, but if you're going to cheat a little bit with someone technically show ran, or at least co-show ran Book of Boba Fett, I'm going to cheat and bring in Rick Famuyiwa's name.
Yes.
And Rick Famuyiwa, directed still one of my favorite episodes in the modern Star Wars era, that Chapter 2 of Mandalorian. And then for a lot of season 3 was up there, EP kind of helping Dave and John as they handled more duties. And so you could say maybe he was a bit of a showrunner for season 3. But here's someone who I just love listening to him talk about Star Wars. I love listening to Filoni talk about Star Wars. I love listening to Jon Favreau stumbling around his love of the original trilogy as he directs things in a modern age. But I've loved listening to him talk, this being Rick Famuyiwa, of what it meant to him and how it's such a different perspective from someone like Dave or John, and how he, I think, just gets the core of the big Star Wars ideas, but also has that fun and that tone poem of a second chapter still. When I talk about trying to figure out what they were doing in season 1, that was still the episode where I was like, oh, I get it. This is not what I was expecting. And I like what they're putting down here on the tracks. So, yeah, I give him, hell, I'd even take if it wouldn't happen. But, like, give him Mando season 4 coming out of a movie. Or give me something in the universe, or something completely different. You talk about we talked in the last episode, Star Wars Underworld type stuff. And that's not necessarily just bounty hunters to me, but go into the depths of Coruscant. What's going on down there in terms of the Star Wars Underworld and the Star Wars middle to lower class? I think he would handle that stuff kind of well. And fun.
Oh, I would love that. One of my favorite episodes that he directed was the one, it's not called The Prisoner. It's where they all are in the prison, right? With
I think it is The Prisoner. Yeah.
Yeah, with the woman from Game of Thrones and Clancy Brown, right?
Yep, and Bill Burr. Yeah, that whole great series. Yeah.
I just love that, because there was so much style to that episode visually, as well as like danger. It was very unpredictable. It was kind of, I don't want to say it was just thrilling. It was kind of scary in moments where it's like, what's going to happen? Like, right?
Yeah.
I thought that was fantastic. I would love to see that turned into a movie.
We talk often about different genres that we want to see fully explored in Star Wars, and a Star Wars horror film, like, that was the vibe, man.
That was it.
That was it.
Yes, exactly.
That was it.
Exactly.
It's funny. I'm pulling up his list too. Yeah. So Chapter 6, The Prisoner. Mine, Chapter 2, The Child, which is still, again, like I said, just one of my favorites in Star Wars. I forgot in season 2 he does The Believer, which is the other great Bill Burr episode.
Oh,
And he is able to mix, high stakes, high intensity table conversations, but also the action of marauders and the tension of the action just to get to the Imperial Station there, all that stuff. He's spectacular. So I'm going to champion him as much as I can. Of course, he finished a lot of season 3 as well. I forgot he had 3 director credits in season 3. So I like that. My other choice is Steph Green, who did Book of Boba Fett, an episode that is still talked about. She did do some Ahsoka episodes, or at least one episode. And even though that series didn't connect with me as much as the other series, love her work. But it's that Book of Boba Fett episode and just diving deep into the Tusken culture.
Oh, that was great.
And lore, and that beautiful episode that was weird. It was a weird and that wonderful Star Wars way. It was spiritual. It was mystical. It was outside the box. So Steph Green, I hope she gets more chances to direct number 1 in Star Wars. But what's her Star Wars series idea? That'd be pretty fun for me to see.
This is why people need to give Book of Boba Fett another chance, because we're pulling out names from it, and there's a reason why.
I was having this conversation recently. It was some folks, and I always say this, Jed. Anyone's criticisms of Book of Boba Fett that they say to me, I usually don't disagree with. Like I usually go, yeah, no, I think you're right. I get what you're saying, and these are the good faith folks who are coming at it with like, hey, it just didn't work for me. From the colorful speeders and some of the dialogue and acting, I get it. There's nothing that I think people say to me that I feel is wrong about the series. It was kind of wild. It was a little wonky. It was a little different. Not what you expected with Boba Fett. I had a guy on a panel once who was like, he started his cosplay career as Boba Fett. He's one of the Dad Batch guys, great dude, and he was just like, it wasn't not my Boba Fett like in a aggressive manner, but he's just like that's not why I loved the character, and they took it to a direction I didn't like. That's fair, completely fair. But I don't know. It's just something. The series is magical to me. It just has some of my favorite moments.
There are so many moments that I can point to that I just think of randomly. I mean, Garza Fwip and her casino and Black Chrysanthemum and the Hutts and the Athorian mayor. It's just like you go down the line. The Gamorreans fighting. Like there's just so many
dying.
Right?
Yeah.
Just so many great visuals that I just can't get out of my head. That it's very memorable for me.
Yeah. We could turn this to a defensive Book of Boba Fett episode. And again, folks are going to say we're wrong or they don't like it. And I'm always like I said, tip of the cap. I get it. It was like a Star Wars. It's not even a Star Wars cartoon from back in the day, like droids or Ewoks. But I always think like even the holiday special animated sequence with Boba Fett, you look at that and you go, oh, this is what Favreau did with Mando. Yes. And I think that translates to Book of Boba Fett too. It is late 70s Star Wars, much like you and I were talking on the news episode about the pirates coming up in Skeleton Crew, reminding us of late 70s comic book Star Wars, which is sometimes completely wild and outside the box. But that's what I love about the Book of Boba Fett series.
Here.
And it's got heart. A lot of names. Those are our choices there. If you have any other names you want to throw out, Jen?
No. Gosh, I can't think of anybody else.
Because there's a lot. And this era's already been like 6 years. We're already getting this 6 year. It's still like, the new Star Wars TV era. You mean the one that's been going for half a decade? Yeah. And more on the way. Thankfully, I think it's a good thing. So yeah, unless I can sneak Jennifer Corbett and the animation crew in there, those are some of my answers. A lot of great shows out there. If you have a showrunner or a director you'd like to see become a showrunner or a director of a major motion picture in the Star Wars world, leave the comment down below on YouTube or post it in our Discord. Be a good conversation starter indeed. So we're going to take a quick break right now. But on the other side, we have got a question about Star Wars names. Stick around for more ForceCenter. Hey, everybody, I'm back here. Unless you're watching on YouTube, then we just kind of paused and you skipped the ad, and we're still here. But on the podcast side, welcome back. Ken Napzok, Jennifer Landa here in the ForceCenter virtual studio, taking questions from our listeners on our ForceCenter Discord, which you can access via our Patreon page at patreon.com/ForceCenter. And our friend 8984M, a.k.a. Brady, a.k.a. Kyrie, a.k.a. one of the sweetest human beings I've ever had the pleasure of interacting with, whether call-ins or when he came out to see Joseph's birthday show, has a great question here, Jen. Let me scroll to it first and then read it. Where do you draw the line in Star Wars with real-life names? Like Ben, Luke, Han, and Leia are very much real-world names, but no one bats an eye. Hell, I've met a real-life Mr. Calrissian before, yet this name seems very normal in a space opera. Yet, I am sure if we met a character with the name Ken, or Emily, or I'll say Jennifer, people would feel it as too real-world. For me, recently, there was a character in the Star Wars Outlaws game named Jalen, which, while real-world seems to fit the galaxy, but as someone who avidly follows basketball, I cannot help but think that this character's parents were huge fans of the Michigan Fab Five's Jalen Rose. So from a certain point of view, it is too real life for me. Well, I personally don't mind any real world names as long as it tells me something about the character. I think everyone's mileage will vary. So to reiterate, ForceCenter, where do you draw the line with real world names in Star Wars? I think over the years, Jen, we've had various versions of this conversation. When Joseph and I were diving deeper into the High Republic, and you had Jedi Master Douglas show up. There's Tim Carlo and his socks from Andor, which you add an M, you're okay. Where do you go with this? And I'll say this before I even give my answer. I do agree with him. I don't bat one eye for 1 second about Ben.
Yeah.
But if he had yelled Ken, I'd be like, oh, that's not.
That's not Star Wars.
That's not Star Wars.
Oh, I never want to see a Jennifer in Star Wars. Please. There's already too many of us in the real world.
Too many Jennifers from the late 70s into the 80s. Yep.
Oh, my goodness. But there is something interesting, right? Because, you can have a name like Ben. You could even have a name like Bob. But there has to be some sort of variation on it or a last name. So, like Kenobi, right?
Yeah.
So, or if Bob, you're going to spell it B-A-H-B. There's got to be something that's different from Bob that makes it a little bit, or even sing-songy, like Jod Nanawood. Jod, okay. So I could see some parent naming their kid Jod. But Nanawood is what makes it truly Star Wars.
Yeah, I could see some Jods running around there. Yeah, look, and the long-running Star Wars joke that we've played a part in here too, and is Luke Skywalker becomes, that's your Star Wars name, whatever your normal first name and whatever it is, and I think I created one time years ago a character named Hot Sock. I basically wanted to be a space DJ. I was on my friend Nick Mundy's show, and I created this character, Ken Hot Sock or something like that. Normal/weird last name. But that's not always true. That's not necessarily the convention for every character. I love, this is why I think over the years have become obsessed with the Imperial officers. At one point, it was just General Veers, but then you start, learning their names, and it's Maximilian Veers. It's just even more mind-blowing to me. So that's part of it. I love it. But yeah, I don't know the line. When you see it. And it's done so sparingly. That's why Tim Carlo, and it's perfect for the Andor series, and I don't mean that as a slight towards the series, but it's just such a realistic take on the Star Wars galaxy. So, of course, there's going to be a average dude named Tim.
The character fits with the name Tim.
Yes.
Right? It works. I mean, I can't imagine. Tim Carlo is not going to be the hero of the galaxy. Let's put it that way. Right?
He's not. He's going to be a snake. He's going to sell out his girlfriend's ex-boyfriend. That's what he does. That's what Tim Carlo does.
Yeah. It is interesting, though, because I also look to Star Wars for the outlandish names like Therm Scissor Punch or, what is it? Elon Sleaze Bagano. There's just some that are so ridiculous that only Star Wars can get away with it and have it work. Right?
Was it a Jedi Master? I'm gonna die.
No.
Yeah. Right. I mean, we've joked about it before here over the years. I still think the worst Star Wars name is Savage Opress, and by being the worst, it might be one of the best.
Exactly. I remember going to the Clone Wars screening for that arc, and I kept calling it Savage. I didn't know it was Savage,
Sure.
right? But it's just so there it is, right there, pulpy, right? Very pulpy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Do you have any names that, by unintentionally, Jalen Green being a great example for Brady here? I'd have that if there was a character named Marino Clayton. I'd be like, oh, that's a Miami Dolphin fan from the '80s. So like, I totally get that. But yeah, anything, any names that take you out of Star Wars, not by the name's fault, but just your own life experiences.
I'm trying to think. In that Secret of the Monkey Island or whatever, that video game, the character's last name was something like Skyblood. Oh shoot, I gotta look it up now. But it was like, it was such a reference to Star Wars that it was like, come on, this takes me out of it. But yeah, I'll have to think about what that.
Yeah, there was some. I think the novels, the modern era novels, have had some great names that just totally play into it, but take me out a little bit. But in a fun way, where it's just like, all right, I get what we're doing here. I got it. Some of the pilots' names, I got to remember some. It's been so long. And then I've mentioned before too. This is nothing against nothing against Daniel Jose Older. His Jedi character Buckets of Blood, which is the nickname, which comes from a very real life story that he talked about of a former EMT that he worked with. It's not even that it's real world. It just always takes me out. It's too like, I don't know about that. A Jedi called Buckets. I don't know about that. But it's an 80. He's told the story before, and it's a great story. That's the other one. I'm trying to think. I'm trying to think of a name. Going back through the years. But I buy into it. So easily, and I think that was established by New Hope. I think the fact that old Ben Kenobi. Owen's a pretty normal name.
Yeah, I know an Owen.
I know an Owen too.
Yeah.
Shout out to my buddy Owen Mugen. I think I'd be fascinated to. I don't know. You might know more than me. You've spent more time researching the Star Wars history. If there's any comments or thoughts from George Lucas on some of the name choices.
Yeah, I have tried to get to the heart of that, because there's always debate on where the names originated from, and I don't think he's ever given like a standard answer.
Unless it's related to his dog, he doesn't, or one of his dogs. He doesn't give any.
No. Or he vacillates, right? He changes his mind. He'll say one thing, and then like 10 years later, he's like, actually, no, this is what the answer was. So it's hard to pin him down.
Hell, not only is it in story, but how many times have you heard George say Princess Leia and also say Princess Leia? So,
oh my God,
not just General Jan Dodonna. And that's one of the things I loved, going just into the names of stars. Han versus Han in Solo: Star Wars Story is still a fun inside joke for me, and Lando almost refusing to get it right.
Right.
Yeah, and have you? Well, look, you've. I was going to say, have you ever named a pet a Star Wars name?
Oh yeah, Mala. The problem is that I didn't want to give her the full name, Mala Tolok, sure. Right? So I shortened it to Mala. And now when I take her to the groomers or various places, people say Maya, because in Spanish the two L's are the Y sound, and I feel bad correcting them. And then I feel even more awkward being like, actually, it's based on a Star Wars character from the Star Wars holiday special, Mala Tolok. So I don't I don't do it. I just yes, Maya. That's her name.
It's like a Starbucks cup. Yep, that's
the Starbucks cup.
Yeah.
I did come across a kid who had the name Anakin, where I was like, wow, that's a choice.
Well, we have our listener Anakin Crespin, who sends in questions, and I wrote he had got a hold of a personalized copy of Why We Love Star Wars, and I wanted to clarify, and I believe it was his girlfriend who was this is his name.
That's his name.
That's his name.
It's amazing. It's amazing.
Thank God he became a Star Wars fan.
Right. Like my daughter, her name is Alea. I really wanted to give her the name Leia. And I was like, well, I'll do a variation. And then funny enough, because we live in LA, she was in a dance class with a young girl who had the name Leia. who spelled it like Princess Leia. There was a little bit of confusion because my daughter's not used to being, there's another Leia in the group, right? And my daughter sees herself. She's like, I am Princess Leia. So I was like, well, her name is actually spelled correctly in canon, but we're not going to go down that road. You're only 5. You don't have to worry about canon, kid.
Look, I love it. No children in my future, but there was a point in time where I wrote down names for my kids if I was ever to have them, and I was convinced this is about 2003 or 4 range. I was like, I'm gonna have a daughter, and I'm gonna name her Amidala, and
that would have been great.
Would have been great, yeah, but like I'm sure that's the case now, which is sure. So it becomes this meta thing of like some of the more weirder Star Wars names. Amidala is a Star Wars name, and sure George may have pulled from some places, and I'm sure there's history of the name, but like something like Anakin, something like Amidala, because it's so weirdly Star Wars, can become normal, where it's just a name in our time and a name in our real world.
Love it. I love it. And then you could call her Ami. How cute is that?
Yeah.
Oh, well.
See? It's all there. All right, someone out there, tell me either your kid is named Amidala or get to it. To go back to Brady's question as we close here. Love this question. I do think, as he says, mileage will vary. There's probably a lot of folks who hear the name Jalen and they don't think of Jalen Rose. I would think of it as well as a sports fan, even though I don't follow college basketball. The Fab Five was everywhere. It's a pop culture moment, that starting lineup for Michigan. So Jalen Rose would come to mind, but. I've known some K's in my time, and K Vess from Outlaws doesn't, take me out of it. It's just, you know it when you know it. When Jedi Master Douglas shows up on scene, you know that it feels a little different.
Douglas, that's a tough one. I would definitely think that's too normal of a Star Wars name.
Yeah, no offense to Douglases out there.
No
There's probably some Douglases like, finally I'm in Star Wars. Finally my name is represented in the galaxy, and here we are. Too normal. But it's like we said, mileage may vary. Well, there you go. Apologies to all the Star Wars names out there. That's our answers. If you have a pet, an offspring, or a car that you name Star Wars, let us know in the comments or let us know on Discord. I want to share some of those names. I want to see who gets it. Well, there you go. Any final thoughts, Jen? Names in Star Wars.
Oh, the Amidala, that will haunt me. That's a great. It's really difficult to pick any person's name or pet's name. I went through a lot. I went with what my dog looked like, which was a Wookiee, and here we are.
Look, I had a good friend who had a Lando cat for a while. It's a good way. It's a good way. Love that. All right, we're out of here for today. Thank you to Brady, 8984M, my favorite username to say. Eli, OchiFan327. Thanks for supporting and being in our ForceCenter Discord, but also some great questions, and there was some more in there, so we have options for down the line. We're out of here for today. You can find us on social media at ForceCenter Pod. Facebook page is ForceCenter Podcast, and you can also follow us on Instagram. We're available as a podcast in a lot of spots. Just search. You'll find us and take us with you. Or you can watch here on YouTube. Subscribe if you're new. Merch available at tpublic.com/user/ForceCenter. For now, we still got that TeePublic shop. But also, if you're watching on YouTube, it's really easy to go click down below and see our new Fourth Wall shop. We're trying to add some things. Jen, I'm doing this on air, so I remember to ask you off air. Yeah. Got to try to find that Happy Beeps logo that we had designed by the great Brian Ward. It's not in my files, so I don't know where it is. We got to grab it because I want to try to put that up there again.
That's a fun one. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, we'll do that. We'll see if we get knocked by Disney on this platform. Patreon.com/ForceCenter is where you can support us directly. Follow me at Ken Napzok. Go to my website, KenNapzok.com, for more upcoming comedy dates. Pretty light on the travel for the rest of the year, but locally here in Burbank, shows all the time. And other things like my show, Pop Rock and Radio. Check that out. Jen, where can they find you?
You can find me on mainly Instagram at Jennifer Landa, or all the social media sites, or TikTok at Jennifer Landa 1138.
There you go. That is it. We'll see you all next time here on ForceCenter.